We're celebrating our 100th year this year.
That's a pretty long time.
It is. It's a cause for celebration and probably a sanity check. We started off on the farming side, and winemaking is the newest venture. I'm third generation, and the previous two acquired land and farmed and kept the land in the family. After, as you can imagine, there's economic turbulence over the course of 100 years. And so it's been my task and honor to start a wine label. When my grandfather was a little boy, my great-grandfather brought him from Kentucky. And they moved to the South Bay because my great-grandfather wanted his kids to have an enlightened education at this new school called Stanford. And but my grandfather rebelled and he went to Davis. And then he followed his older brother to Napa and started his ventures in 1916. In 1916, Prohibition was already being discussed, and it didn't seem like a good career move for a young man. So he got into livestock, which I think was his passion, and he did quite well with in those eras. But he also had pears and tomatoes and whatever he thought he could make money growing or producing. The typical farmer story. The writing was on the wall. When my grandfather passed, he had all this land, but he only had 2 acres of grapes. And the writing was on the wall that was the agricultural trend. And so when he passed and we went through all the trials and tribulations of estate planning and trying to save what land we could from death taxes, we leased out the legacy property to Behringer, and Walt and Roy Raymond were still involved at the time. And it's been with Behringer since those early days in the 70s. My career has been to acquire vineyards and farm it and then add the wine business. Right, so it was the very early 80s, and just in the Tuesday, Thursday classes that I was taking, and we were able perhaps stupidly to take out a variable rate interest loan, and then Paul Volcker decided to tame inflation, and so we got through it. But we can remember starting at 8% and going to 13% before there was any income coming off. So it was definitely got a little down in the heels there for a while, but we made it all work. And you're young, and you can sleep in the back of the pickup and wake up without any creaks in your back. And so, but we made it work, and it was fun. I think there are 2 parallel paths of why I have a winery. One is the love of the land and wanting to build upon the legacy that is my family history. And then, of course, loving wine. And I was a neophyte, definitely, when I started growing grapes. And I think unconsciously my palate was formed by having lots of friends and their parents in the wine industry and tasting vintages, perhaps surreptitiously from some great cellars in the Napa Valley when you're a teenage kid, and tasting from the 60s and 70s particularly, an era when our wines were made in a different style. I remember, and the wines were made differently, one, because our viticultural techniques are not what they are today, and there wasn't the kind of money in the wine business then, and so wines were made differently. I think that there was probably even a greater spread of varietal, of vintage variability, because we had a lot of virus vines, and it wasn't really until Mr. Mondavi would pay on the come for grapes that would incentivize growers to use better farming techniques because they could afford to, that allowed winemaking to take the next leap forward. And it seems like a leapfrog process, winemaking reaches a level, then it incentivizes growers to up their game, and then that allows wine to become even better, and so on and so forth. It's a business that you want to try to grow organically. We're just trying to build something that's sustainable in the broadest sense of the word. So there's something for the next generation, and we're taking care of the planet, the people, and you have to have some profits. And so far, so good.